Hi, thanks for watching today. Stay tuned to meet one of America's top trial lawyers, Mike Kazerouni.
Welcome to the YouTube channel of Michael J. Swanson. Michael is the author of How David Beats Goliath and is the CEO of Advocate Capital. And now, here's Michael.
Mike Kazerouni is one of the founding partners at Kazerouni Law Group. For over a decade, Mike has successfully represented thousands of clients and litigated hundreds of personal injury and consumer protection cases, including wrongful death, traumatic brain injury, and defective products litigation in both state and federal courts. Mike has received numerous awards. Most recently, in 2020, he was honored to be recognized as a super lawyer by Thomson Reuters. Mike proudly serves on the board of directors of the Consumer Attorneys of California and is a member of numerous lawyer associations, including the Iranian American Bar Association. When not representing his clients, Mike enjoys spending time with his family, traveling, watching soccer, and he is an avid pilot. And now, here's Mike Kazerouni. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you bet. Boy, you've built quite a law firm across pretty much the whole U.S., helping people in a variety of ways. I know you take all kinds of contingent fee cases, but one I'd like to ask you about today has to do with suing debt collectors who step over the line with various regulations that apply to them. And that's a pretty relevant topic right now with the pandemic and the layoffs and everything. Tell us about that. How'd you get into that?
Sure. So, just brief background. We started our law firm back in 2007, right at the beginning of the Great Recession. And very early on into our practice, we were receiving calls from consumers seeking help because they were, dealing with a lot of credit card debts or medical debts, and they were really being harassed by debt collectors and didn't know what to do. And, a lot of consumers don't realize that there are statutes in place to help consumers, even though the consumer does owe a debt and the financial institutions are entitled to recover that debt. Mm-hmm. There are boundaries that the debt collectors or financial institutions need to follow to be able to recover that debt. Like attempting to collect the debt. If you can't get it resolved, go to the court, get your judgment, and then collect the outstanding balances. What oftentimes happens is this debt gets sold multiple times to different debt collectors because the financial institution may decide that it's not worth their while to pursue that debt in court. They'd rather write it off or sell the debt to somebody else.
Right.
And as the debt changes hands, the debt collectors become extremely aggressive and, in fact, start violating the law. So there are rules in place. The federal government has the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which actually is a tool for the consumer to stop, scrupulous debt collectors and protect the consumer from aggressive and basically illegal debt collection practices.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be pointed out that oftentimes people are trying to collect debts that they're not entitled to collect, whether it's a debt that falls outside of the statute of limitations, or whether it's a debt that you never even owed. You'd be surprised how often we get calls from consumers saying, "I have no idea why this bank is suing me. I've never had a debt. I've never been indebted to them."
Is that right?
And that happens quite often.
Oh my goodness, that's scary. You get a summons one day and Bank of America is suing you or something crazy, huh?
Right. We practice law nationwide, and I don't care which state you're in. If you visit your local courthouse, the number one top file cases in any county in the United States are debt collection cases. It's financial institutions or medical providers suing consumers for debt. And oftentimes what happens is the consumer is not even made aware of these lawsuits. There is a whole industry that thrives on what we call junk service, filing lawsuits against consumers, then having proofs of service filed against consumers that have never been served and that ultimately end up in default. Sometimes the consumer doesn't even find out about the lawsuits until 2-3 years down the line, where they, are served with a, some sort of levy against their bank account on a lawsuit they were never aware of, on a judgment they never received.
No kidding.
through what we in the industry call junk service, and it does tremendous damage to consumers who are not aware of it.
Yeah.
It kind of defies the legal bounds and legal rules that we have in place to protect both sides, both the debt collector and the consumer.
Right. Now, no. So I usually say if you can't figure something out, follow the money. So who is it that's making money on these junk service lawsuits?
So it's a huge industry. The debt collection industry is massive. I mean, anybody seems to be able to get into it, and essentially, it's buying a debt that's for a substantial amount for pennies on the dollar, and then trying to collect on that. So if you can buy a portfolio of say $10 million worth of debt for, and I'm just making up numbers here, but let's just say you buy $10 million portfolio of debt for $1,000, you now as the debt collector have an incentive to try to recover on that debt. And so oftentimes these debts are sold multiple times. And as they get passed down, the debt collection practice from these debt collectors becomes extremely aggressive, oftentimes unlawful, and that it is essentially an opportunity for the consumer to fight back under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which is a statute that is intended to protect consumers who usually are not in a position to actually even hire an attorney. A lot of consumers say, well, wait, if I can't afford to pay my debts, how can I even hire an attorney who may charge a few $100s an hour to represent me? Yeah. Unfortunately, the legislators, when they enacted the statute, had enough foresight to understand that there needs to be a fee provision where the attorneys, if they are able to prove the violation, are able to recover their fees from the at-fault party, in this case, the debt collector. So the representation in these cases oftentimes, if not always, doesn't cost the consumer anything. When we recover for the consumer and we can show the violation by the debt collector ends up having to pay for our fees and costs, which benefits the consumer who wouldn't have been able to hire an attorney otherwise. So it's a great tool for consumers to be able to fight back, and we've been using it for 13 years. And I think given what's happening in the economy right now, I think you're going to see a lot more of this happening. You're going to see more stories about consumers being taken advantage of. A lot more people are going to be in a position where they're unfortunately not going to be able to make their bills, whether it's because of a medical condition or because of a job loss, which we've all witnessed because of COVID and the way the environment and the way the economy is right now.
Yeah. Before I forget, if someone had a question for you after watching this video, how might they get a hold of you?
So I think the best place to start it is our website, which is www.kazlg.com. All our attorneys, we have 22 attorneys at our firm, can be contacted through the website. There is a ton of information about the different area of law. The FDCPA is not a long statute, but it has a lot of intricacies. And you can find some of the most common violations on our website. Just to kind of tie in another thing, usually people that have debt collection issues also have other issues. Fair Credit Reporting Act is one of them. Things end up on people's credit reports that they're that shouldn't be there. That's just inaccurate. And so there's a ton of information on our website. That's the best place to start. And then if they want to contact us, obviously our toll-free number is 800-400-6808.
I can see why you're one of America's top trial lawyers, Mike. I really appreciate you taking time with us today to help us learn about some of these important issues and what we can do about them. And
Mike,
we appreciate.
If I just may add something, I think it should be noted that consumer attorneys like myself and contingent attorneys that do the type of work that we do, we have to front all the costs for these type of cases. And if it wasn't for people like Advocate Capital, institutions that are able to help us grow and aid more consumers, I don't think we'd be able to do the work that we do on the scale that we've been able to do it. So I just want to point that out there, because doing what we do is extremely expensive. We carry the financials of representing thousands of consumers, and having access to credit and funds to be able to do so is extremely important and goes a long way for us to help more consumers. So thank you for your partnership as well.
Well, thank you. It is a great partnership, and it's a lot of fun. Mike, thanks again for being here. I know you're very busy managing all those 11 offices around the country and helping people. So we really appreciate it. Keep up the great fight.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
You bet.
Thanks for watching. Send your questions or comments to Michael at mike@howdavidbeatsgoliath.com.